Hello, friends. We are in this Egoic Lotus webinar commentary series, and I have finished program 60, which consisted of foundational references for the Petals of Synthesis. Now, I'm not going to go through the Petals of Synthesis with the same kind of exacting attention that I gave to the other 9 petals. So much less is known about them, at least by us. And the real opening of these Petals of Synthesis occurs between the 3rd and 4th initiations, when synthesis of some kind, perhaps according to the ray, is the objective of the initiate. We've been told, how much knowledge, for instance, is accumulated by the initiate between the 3rd and 4th degree, contributing to the vitalization, I'm sure, the opening of the Synthesis Petal of Knowledge, the 10th petal. But all of these petals of synthesis, since will, love, and wisdom, will, love, and knowledge all play into each other and support each other, all of these petals have to burst open, revealing the jewel, before the 4th degree. And they are only partially open before the 3rd degree. At each initiation, we are told, there is some unfoldment of one of the synthesis petals, probably at the 1st degree, the knowledge synthesis petal unfolds somewhat, and then at the 2nd degree, the knowledge continues to unfold, but the love synthesis petal unfolds somewhat, and at the 3rd degree, the knowledge and love synthesis petals continue to unfold, but the will synthesis petal unfolds somewhat. And then I imagine, because that's all I can do at the moment, is imagine, that between the 3rd and 4th degree, the synthesis of love, knowledge, and will interplay with each other, and this synthesis continues to grow until a time comes before the 4th degree, whether it's in the same life as the 3rd or whether it's in a subsequent life, when the synthesis petals burst open and reveal far more fully than has been the case before the jewel in the lotus. And this is the signal that the 4th initiation is about to occur. There have been, some valuable references that I went over in program number 60, and they have given us an idea of the nature of the synthesis petals, the how they were formulated, how and when they unfold, also in relation to various chakric unfoldments, and then finally how the egoic lotus itself is destroyed by the power of the monad, the power of the initiator, power resident within the petal substance, that is Devic power, and also the intensity of the atomic triangle. The 3 units there, the mental unit, the astral and mental permanent atoms, and their circulation. All of these are contributing to the destruction at the 4th initiation of the entire egoic lotus. Now, my intention here is to try to understand a little bit about the synthesis of knowledge, synthesis of love, and synthesis of will. Of course, there's only so much knowledge that can be accumulated by the human being before the fourth initiation. But let's just say that all the knowledge that he has accumulated from the time that individualization occurred is somehow blended and merged, and can be called upon to augment any focus of knowledge within the three worlds, or even beyond to a degree. In other words, all of this accumulated knowledge is supplemental to any item of accumulated knowledge. All knowledge bears upon a particular item of knowledge upon which we may be concentrating. Now, you know, we have a city, a power, on the third subplane of the atomic plane called all knowledge. But that is the prerogative of the master. The synthesis of knowledge about which we are speaking here is the synthesis of accumulated knowledge, and it's not so much knowledge that may be conferred while working within the spiritual triad, maybe to a certain degree, but not as high as what a master of the wisdom would know about the divine plans and the plans of the planetary logos, and that type of knowledge being registered on the third subplane of the mental plane. So it's a special condition of knowing where all items known are easily related to each other. And I think we can understand that some degree of pure reason would be involved here. I know pure reason is a second aspect faculty, and we're dealing here with the third aspect. You know, in the minds of so many people, there are isolated items of knowledge which have not been interrelated and seem to have no bearing upon any other item of knowledge. So it's not really an integrated state of knowledge within the contents of consciousness. But when we are acquiring the kind of synthesis of knowledge that appears in the work upon and unfoldment of the 10th petal, interestingly a number of synthesis really, then we have that ability to see the unity of all the interrelationships between items of knowledge. We could pick up any item of knowledge and find the way it was related to any other item, and it would not be necessarily a laborious process, because the synthesis is simply seen to exist. I mean, after all, everything is interrelated. It's just that we don't see it. And when we're working in acquiring a great deal of knowledge between the third and fourth initiations, it's not disorganized knowledge. It's knowledge which facilitates the interrelation of all items of knowledge. Perhaps it's a little bit harder to understand the synthesis of love. You know, I'm kind of thinking on my feet here, as it were, even though I'm sitting down. And I'm trying to see what occurs to me. You know, we have specific desires and specific loves. But we want to learn how to love more as the planetary logos loves. Because although, you know, we are, these petals are related to the spiritual triad, they're not yet on the plane of the spiritual triad where the mind of God, the love of God, and the will of God are somehow made clearer to us, and we are participating in them. But nevertheless, there's a reflection of that higher state of logoic mind and love and will when the synthesis petals are unfolding. And we may have had very specific objects of love as we have come through our long evolutionary process. But we begin to see that that love is far more general. And all I can say is that all loves are really one love, and that there is, just the way there's one knower behind all items of knowledge, there's one lover behind all these specific different types of love which may be in existence. So I would simply say that we begin to love more broadly, more generally, and in a way less specifically. We begin to include so many forms of love in a great synthetic loving relationship with the world and with the various energies and forces that we can contact. The synthesis of love, it is not so personal. It is verging towards the impersonal love of the spiritual triad, and is certainly fed by buddhi. We are learning to generalize our love, so that it is not about what pleases us or displeases us, but the great magnetic energy of love is becoming a reality to us, and we see how all beings are related in that one love. And of course, the intuition will be more stimulated. All the things that we can say of buddhi, since buddhi is largely responsible for the founding of these three petals, as explained in the previous program, all that buddhi affords will be reflected on the higher mental plane, where these synthesis petals are actually unfolding. Now, whatever can happen in relation to the synthesis petals, of course, is a limitation to what can happen in the spiritual triad when unencumbered by the egoic lotus. We have to remember that the individual for whom these synthesis petals are unfolding is, of course, entering a wider life, but not yet entering the full life of the spiritual triad, as he will following the fourth initiation. So although the individual is a relatively high initiate, a true initiate of the third degree, and rapidly expanding in the field of knowledge and the field of love, it's not as full an expansion as will occur when he is divested of the limitations of the egoic lotus on the higher mental plane. The same goes for the synthesis of will. There are many acts of will in which we are engaged and others are engaged, but do we actually realize that there is one willing being behind all of these separate acts of will, and that the many acts of will are actually part of one great act of will which is being acted or somehow expressed by the planetary logos. Now, it's not the same as being a master with full consciousness on the atmic plane, or at least relatively full consciousness on the atmic plane, but it is a reflection. The synthesis petal of will is a reflection of Atma. They're all, in a way, a reflection of Buddhi, but then in a more special way. The synthesis petal of will is a reflection of Atma. The synthesis petal of love, a reflection of Buddhi, and the synthesis petal of knowledge, a reflection of the manas of the triad. So, the question is, what do we will for? Do we will the union of knowledge and the perceived unity of love in all of our relations and in the world? If we do so, we are losing some of the specificity and targeted quality of acts of will, and we are willing to will as the planetary logos wills. I would imagine that the knowledge of the plan is quite specific when the synthesis of will petal is unfolding, and that we are far more willing to will as higher agencies will, in a broad and general way for the good of all, the will to good, I would say, than we have been able to before, even when becoming a third degree initiate, because somehow our sense of the vastness of the field in which we are immersed has increased greatly, with huge learning, love as spiritual magnetism pouring out to many people and souls, and seeing them united. And also, those two things have greatly increased the field. And we want the welfare of the field. We want the welfare of the whole. We want the will of God to prevail in the whole. We want the love of God to prevail in the whole of which we are aware. We want the knowledge of God to prevail in the field of which we are aware. And at this time I'm speaking of God as the planetary logos. There are many gods and only one God. You know how it goes. All the many gods are really aspects of the one universal logos, the one God. So although probably not so many of us have intimations of what this might be like, we can imagine a wider life when all acts of will are interrelated, all acts of love are interrelated, all perceptions of knowledge are interrelated, and somehow behind it all we begin to sense the One who is working through the jewel in the lotus, which is gradually being revealed. The One is the monad, the one willer, the one lover, the one knower. And gradually we grow into that fullness. Already at the third degree we have experienced what many consider to be the satori, the enlightenment, the illumination. We have come in touch with something far more real than we were able to apprehend before that. Something of the mystery of life has been given to us, and we only grow in our knowledge of that mystery and basically in our identification with that mystery. So although we are not yet fully liberated into the spiritual triad, our sense of wholeness, which is already conferred in the third degree, is rapidly growing. And we our will to will as God wills, our will to love as God loves, our will to know as God knows, these are all rapidly increasing. So we are entering this realm of synthesis. And at the third degree we know that the wholeness is, I am the one, I God. I am the form in which all forms are merged. I am the soul in which all souls are fused. I am the life, and in that life all little lives remain. Already at the third degree, that is, those realizations are not just mental theories and formulations. They are realizations. So in the work upon synthesis, this work upon bringing all things together and into relation, what is achieved at the third degree can only increase. Our sense of the whole, our identification with the divine will, identification with the divine love, identification with the divine knowledge can only increase as we proceed towards a great victory which will occur at the fourth initiation. Now, when can we really work on this kind of synthesis? I mean, we can have anticipations of it as we're moving through the 8th and 9th petal, and as each initiation, say the 2nd and 3rd, give us a greater sense of the whole, the wholeness, and release us from the vices which obscured consciousness. But then we enter this realm which few of us are qualified to talk about, and I'm not saying I'm qualified to talk about it. I'm just offering speculations here which may give us some intimation, some inkling of what the process will be like as we grow in synthesis after the third degree and before the fourth degree. Only, of course, to continue our growth in synthesis when the limitations of the causal body, confining our consciousness in some respect to the higher mental plane, when those limitations have been lifted. So this is, kind of a speculative program. If you, it's petal number 10, which is the Synthesis Petal of Knowledge, and I'll say things as they come to my mind. We know we are dealing with synthesis because we've got that 1 in front of the other number. And number 1 and number 10, number 100 and so forth and on, these are numbers of synthesis. They all equal 1 in a way, numerologically, and the many are known as 1, just as they are at the third degree. We know the Capricorn is a planet specific to the third degree. Now, the real synthesis, appreciation of that kind of synthesis, cannot begin until after the third degree. Ever since the first degree, some unfoldment of the synthesis petal has been occurring, but at the third degree we are far in advance of anything we might have realized at the first. So we can't really speak of the first degree and a little bit of the unfoldment of the knowledge synthesis petal at the first degree. We have to see how things are at the third degree. And it is a Capricorn petal if we start at Aries, and continue our numbering and make the egoic lotus a kind of zodiac. Then when we are working in, attempting to achieve a synthesis of knowledge at the 10th petal, then we're going to be dealing with the sign Capricorn. I don't think it pays to reverse the zodiac and go in the clockwise manner, seemingly backwards. We would, if we began with Aries and we went backwards, we would find Gemini. And then, we'd go on and we'd find Taurus, and we'd find Aries finally for the synthesis will petal. And of course I can make correlations there, but we're not really dealing with a clockwise motion once we get into the synthesis petals. Or, it just occurred to me, or are we? we have been told that there's a rotation that is stimulated at a high degree of advancement after the lower tiers or circles of petals spring open and adjust to each other in a certain way, and eventually, I think, all turn in the same direction, which will be opposite of the way that the synthesis petals are turning. So, I think I can... We're sometimes told that Aries, Taurus, and Gemini are three signs which are very, very subjective. And certainly these petals are extremely subjective, or at least introduce the consciousness into states of awareness which, relative to our awareness in the three worlds, are extremely subjective. So maybe I could find a way to think of Gemini for the knowledge synthesis petal, Taurus for the love synthesis petal, or we might call it the love wisdom synthesis petal. Taurus would have more to do, I think, with wisdom, and Aries for the, very definitely, for the will synthesis petal. But what I'm going to do anyway is talk about the different energies that we have been dealing with, zodiacal, planetary, and ray energies, in terms of how they might assist the person working on synthesis to achieve his objective. Now, some of them will be more assistive than others, and some will apply more to a particular petal than others will. I'll discover that as I go along. I'm just going to try to rely upon my store of knowledge from much reading and thinking, without planning it out so much ahead of time, just seeing what occurs to me along the way. Before getting into this very specific kind of assignment of energies to the synthesis petal process, we have to say that by this time, the Four Noble Truths are completely accepted. The Noble Eightfold Path is exactly the path that is being trodden. All of the commandments are obeyed, and all of the rules are obeyed. After all, we're dealing with a high initiate here. And some of, the climactic cards of the tarot are relevant. We have to remember, after thousands of lives, we may be dealing with a period in which only one life remains, except as undertaken by choice in the lower three worlds. There would be no need to reincarnate in the lower three worlds as a fourth degree initiate unless there was a specific purpose for it. Desire would not drag the individual back. Only an act of loving will for service purposes would bring the individual back to the lower worlds. So all of these, the Beatitudes would make sense because we have, in a way, renounced any desirous attachment to the lower world. So during this final life, or maybe it's a life or two, the Beatitudes would be realized. We would realize who really is blessed for having relinquished, given up, renounced so much of what is considered desirable in the lower worlds. And there would be a reflection of this atmic blessedness occurring in the consciousness. We would definitely be the initiate. We've gone through all of the stages of the 10 human stages, or 10 stages of soul development, and maybe we're not the full initiate yet. We're not the complete master. So maybe the last of the stages of adaptation and the last of the 10 human groups would not be completely fulfilled, but after all, we're pretty close to the fourth initiation. And sometimes the fourth and fifth can even be taken in the same life, as we are told. So we're very close to success as a human being, to liberation, and to establishing ourself as an initiate of the fifth degree. So all of those, I think you can see that, that 80, occasionally my screen goes dark if all I'm going to do is talk instead of write. All of those items in the 80-point outline, well, let's say so many of them have been fulfilled. Well, we're dismounting from the fixed cross at this point. We're not quite on the cardinal cross, but we're getting close to the one who need not return. So, you probably could go through some of those 80 items, and you could probably find for instance, the creative hierarchies to which such a person would be related. Let's just say that due to the functionality of the Antikarana, we're a lot closer to the triple flowers, and we have definitely not rejected the triple flowers. We have accepted the triple flowers, and we have not refused to become a Christ. We have volunteered to become a Christ with the acceptance of the triadal flowers, and well, we have to break the causal body before we really can come into full rapport with those angelic lives which will animate or are animating the rapidly coordinating triadal vehicles. We have a higher mental vehicle at this point, at least in formation, and our Buddhic vehicle is rapidly coordinating, and well, maybe the Atmic vehicle is not quite coordinated, but will be by the time we are a master. So, you can go through those 80 items and you can see a lot of fulfillment here. But what about the specifics, The specifics of these energies. Now, I cannot say exactly how they will relate, but I can give some ideas. If we go for the synthesis of knowledge, Capricorn, interestingly, in a major triangle called Leo, Pisces, Capricorn, is related to humanity and to the third aspect and to knowledge. And for the disciple, Capricorn conveys the third ray, even though its major ray conveyed is the seventh. Cancer conveys the third ray for the masses, but Capricorn for the disciple and initiate, and we certainly are that. So the ability to see and understand from the mountaintop of initiation is very great. And knowledge, very concrete knowledge of non-concrete things can be accumulated here. And there's always with Capricorn, because of its number 110, a tendency towards synthesis, towards bringing things into a perfected relationship. So I think we have a tremendous point of vantage at the top of the mountain, which contributes to the synthesis of knowledge. I mean, here is Saturn, a major third-ray planet, coming through Capricorn, and we're in the third aspect here when we're talking about uniting all knowledge. So it's reinforced by the ruler, and a great deal of light is conferred by Venus as the hierarchical ruler, which certainly will be operative in relation to the person who has a lot of this Capricorn energy. So I think we can see the way of standing on the mountaintop and looking at a vast array of knowledge and seeing how it's all interrelated. DK talks about the astonished or astounded disciple standing upon the mountaintop of transfiguration and seeing the passage of the energies. This is, that passage of the energies is a great moment of appreciated knowledge. And Capricorn is that mountaintop from which the third degree initiate can see all of these rivers and streams of force interrelated. So Capricorn is very much there. Of course, if we do look at the reverse and look at Gemini, we understand that Gemini is one of the most intelligent of all the signs and is particularly good at relating items of perception, items of knowledge. So the unification of the field of items of knowledge will be greatly facilitated by Gemini. Now, I suppose, I'm not going to get into all of it. It's not just a question of what sign of the zodiac, what planet, what ray, but what planet may be in a particular sign, and how that might help us with our synthetic task. See, that's what I'm looking at here. We have a task of synthesis before us. What are the specific energies and their combinations that will help us in this task of synthesis? For instance, I just thought, okay, Jupiter is said to be in detriment in Gemini, but it's got a very strong relationship to Gemini in terms of the second ray, whereby we can unite all the disparate perceptions that we call items of knowledge and see them in one cohesive whole. So certainly Jupiter would help there, as would Jupiter in Capricorn. But I'm not going to, well, maybe I will be tempted to say how each one of the combinations could contribute, but that would be a vast, I would just have tens of programs attempting to do that. And I have on Makara, for most of the planets, talked about every planet in every sign on three different levels: that of the average man, that of the one who is responding to the soul, and that of the one who is responding to the spirit. So I think I shall resist, it's hard for me to resist, doing another 50 programs or so, especially since this quest for synthesis is a little bit inchoate in the energy system and abilities of most of the disciples who will be studying what I have to say. In other words, Master excuse me, Master DK has given us a great teaching which can take us well to the third degree, but beyond that he speaks mostly in terms of hints, and he is perhaps going to wait for those students to come along who really can benefit from post-third degree teaching, and maybe we'll get that in his next dispensation. In some of the rules for disciples and initiates found in the rays and the initiations, we do get post-third degree teaching. But, it's of limited utility. And also, if I begin to do this in a way which seems to make sense to you, then you can do it too. And according to your horoscope, you can look at every position and see how it might contribute to the growth of the factor of synthesis. When it comes to the various signs of the zodiac, Aries, it is ruling the head, and in the head the occult synthesis takes place, and we hear the statement, I come forth and from the plane of mind I rule. I wonder if we couldn't eventually attach that to the plane of mind, which is a triadal, and from the plane of abstract mind ruling all things. Aries has a particular connection with the acquisition of knowledge because of its strong relationship to Mercury, which is the planet which most identifies items of knowledge and seeks to relate them. So there is a great, when Aries is connected with the third aspect, there is a great initiative towards the acquisition and accumulation of knowledge, and the breaking in all the time to new fields of knowledge. And there's always that synthetic connection to Aries, because like Capricorn, it's related to number one. Think about the relationship of the 10th sign and the first sign, and they do, there is a way in which Aries does indeed turn towards Capricorn, and Capricorn kind of offers a mountaintop consummation. Well, you know, one could go on with this, and I'm attempted to follow obscure trails, which DK advises against doing. But let's just see, there is a great quest for knowledge here when Aries is associated with this particular petal, and a driving force which breaks into new fields of registration, and then has the feeling or the sense of oneness about it, thereby bringing together as if into one thing the items which have been isolated in that new field of registration. When it comes to Taurus, it's the great light. I see the greatest light. I see, okay, it's an act of apprehension. I see, and when the eye is open, the third eye, the blue eye, the Shiva eye, the unitive eye, all is illumined. I see, and when the eye is opened, all is illumined. The Taurus has a strong connection with Venus and its fifth ray, which is able to apprehend in a very clear way items of knowledge, be very clear about them. I'm not sure of the Vulcan connection, but let's just say when it comes to knowledge about the physical plane, and Vulcan is so related to the physical plane, and to the Devas and the Agni Chaitans and those who seem to precipitate substantiality, concreteness, I'd say the opportunity for acquiring knowledge is very great. All the great light of Taurus illuminates the items of knowledge, and Mercury is very connected with this sign, Taurus, just as it is with the Buddha, and illuminates the field of their relationships. The Aries is going to break in and discover the new items of knowledge. You know, you can't put up any walls against the Aries, because he will say, you know, whatever knowing there is behind that door, I'll break through it and come en rapport, come into relationship with those items which I can apprehend. The Taurus illuminates the entire field of knowledge, and the many items of knowledge are seen within the great light. Gemini, as I said, you know, is particularly versatile, and its relation to Mercury is very important, because Mercury is the planet above all which relates the various perceptions and finds commonalities between them and reveals the relationship between them. So all the diversity of Gemini assists us in uniting the many, many diverse items of knowledge. Taurus throws the light, Aries breaks in and reveals new items to acquire, and Gemini comes en rapport with the multiplicity of items of knowledge which need to be synthesized, and it has a lot of Ray 3 connected with it, I would say, although we are told only Ray 2 comes in, but it is the third sign of the zodiac, just as Taurus is the second and Aries is the first, so those numbers mean something. The vast multiplicity of items of knowledge can be touched by Gemini and networked. And along the Gemini network, you can go from any item of knowledge to any other. I think that's most interesting. And even the word interesting is that particularly Mercurian and Geminian word. Now, when it comes to the sign Cancer, we have a sign really connected with the third aspect, and thus with this first of the synthesis petals. Just as we would find Capricorn is when another sign connected with the third aspect. And there's a mantram connected with Cancer that I think is so important in this regard, and it can operate in terms of all the synthesis petals, because Cancer has a very Buddhic relationship, and this mantram is, the whole is seen as one. And that's precisely what we want at this point when dealing with knowledge. All knowledge is seen as one. Kind of reminds us of Francis Bacon, who took all knowledge as his province. Of course, he was at that time, I think, a high initiate, or was passing through the fourth degree. Maybe he was beyond. It's difficult to assess exactly, because he shortly became the master, Master R, the Count de Saint-Germain. So this connection with form that Cancer has is very important, because knowledge generally relates to the study of energy in form. And so there is a focus on the third aspect of divinity through this particular sign, and a very cohesive effect. The knowledge is contained within a certain ring pass knot. It is not allowed to escape. It is Cancer is the sign of integration, a strong sign of integration. And so the tendency to integrate, to fuse, to see as one form all the different items of knowledge is important. We're reminded in the Bhagavad Gita how there was a point at which Arjuna had revealed to him the one great form of God. And this, I think, is a Cancerian type of revelation. So that is meaning to say that people working at this high level and endowed with a strong Cancerian energy in their chart would have this apprehension of oneness facilitated, of the unity of all items of knowledge. The Neptune part of it, of course, breaks down barriers between different items of knowledge and allows their similarities to reach each other, let us say, via Mercury. When it comes to Leo, it's a sign that has a lot of the fifth ray, and so the mind is strong. And the illumination which knowledge gives, what are we told? That we justify knowledge in Leo, and I suppose accumulate it in Taurus. So the great light of Leo shines through all the different items of knowledge which are seen in the field. It is representing the kind of illumination which comes when a vast field of knowledge is interrelated. It is a great light. We call it the light of the soul. That is the type of light. That reminds me, of course, that Cancer would be particularly good at detecting the type of knowledge which is elemental and which is part of the dark light, part of matter, whereas Leo is more the light of the soul. But it has this strong fifth ray, and many prominent scientists dealing precisely with the form have had Leo. But a general field of illumination is created when the items of knowledge are seen as one and interrelated. It's a light field, so it adds to the brilliance of consciousness of the knower, whose field of knowledge is expanding and in whose consciousness the units of knowledge are becoming interrelated. When it comes to Virgo, it's a great sign of specificity, and it has a strong mercurial connotation. This Mercury is not simply the orthodox ruler, but is also the planet exalted there. And so when it comes to the understanding the specificity of knowledge in form, Virgo is very useful. This is what it allows us to create a great understanding of each specific item of knowledge, and at the same time, given the cohesiveness of Jupiter, its hierarchical ruler, to draw them all together. The great field or ocean of matter is seen as one, and yet the specifics, the specificities found within this field of matter are also given precise attention. So we have, what can we call it, discriminative cohesion. And this will be, or a term I like to use, articulated synthesis. It's not just the synthesis which soup suggests. Maybe that's a little more Cancerian. It's an articulated synthesis in which each item of knowledge, each perception, has its own luminous place, and yet all of these items are part of the great ocean of matter and are perceived as such. Now, when it comes to Libra, Libra is related, of course, to petal number 7, and we're talking about higher mind that is in use, and all things accumulated are used for the purpose of service. Those are some of the ideas given, in the middle 500s and the early 800s of Cosmic Fire, where we find maybe the most articulated expressions of each petal. But Libra is a Ray 3 sign, and we're dealing with a petal a synthesis petal, which is all about synthesis on the third ray. And Libra is related to what we call supermind, or triadal mind, or atmic mind. So there is a real ability to work within the third aspect. And maybe, because Libra is also the sign of the equation, now this is not to say that fine mathematicians cannot be found in other signs, of course they can. But Libra has been a major sign in the lives of a number of mathematicians, and now we're going to be looking for mathematicians who are going to be seeking for the formulas which unite knowledge. now into a unified field. I'm not remembering, I don't think that Einstein, he was profoundly third ray, but he did, not sure that he had Libra. He certainly had the Saturn and Mercury in Aries, the sign opposite Libra. But here we are learning the mathematics of unity and how the different items of knowledge are interrelated according to formulas and equations. So I think a pronounced Libra at this time, when one is seeking synthesis in the field of knowledge, can be very technically useful. Scorpio is not so much related to the third ray, but it is going to be a sign which will contribute to the death of the causal body. And it has a very strong relation to mental illumination. Mercury is very strong in Scorpio. It's the hierarchical ruler, and Uranus, too, which has a lot of Ray 3 connected with it, is exalted in Scorpio. So the power to penetrate into the items of knowledge which are apprehended and to move beyond superficialities and find deeper factors which may disclose unsuspected relations would be prominent when Scorpio is there, and there's a strong emphasis upon the third ray. You see, all these petals of synthesis have to unfold, but maybe there is a greater emphasis upon one or other, according to the soul ray and monadic ray. They will all be destroyed, and their content will all be elevated into the triad, even as the jewel in the lotus has a content elevated into Atma Buddhi of the triad. But, perhaps according to the predominant ray, will be the emphasis placed upon one or other of the petals of synthesis. In other words, it's much more likely for a third ray soul or monad to work powerfully in the area of the synthesis of knowledge. They may not be quite so successful in the synthesis of love and the synthesis of will, but they will be somewhat successful. And, we can say the same of the second ray soul or second ray monad. Their work in the synthesis of love will be more focused and successful than their work in the other two modes of synthesis, and thus it will be for the first ray soul or monad working in the synthesis petal of will. And, we do know that the seventh ray is related to ray 1, the fourth and sixth ray either to ray 2 or ray 3, and the fifth ray again related to ray 1, although you'd wonder why it could not have a close relationship to ray 3, and in a way it does, but it doesn't resolve into ray 3. It resolves into ray 1, says the Tibetan. So differential focus in the mode of realizing synthesis is a probability, I would say. If I was looking at my own case, probably I would be, more successful in the area of emphasizing or approaching synthesis through knowledge than I would in other ways, although with a ray 2 soul, the synthesis of love would come in, and I do have a strong, feeling for isolated unity, but I think according to the ray emphasis, there is such a thing as what we call the key petal. Where is this key petal found? Is the key petal actually perhaps found within the synthesis petals? Because it says the rod of initiation touches the key petal. Well, if every initiation involves some degree of unfoldment of a synthesis petal, then it's possible that the synthesis petals are differentially activated at the first, second, and third initiations, and maybe the jewel in the lotus at the fourth. These are speculations, but what they aim at explaining is that everybody does not develop evenly, and that the emphasis on different petals and energies is a differential matter, depending on how, from the energy standpoint, the individual is equipped. So we all achieve the goal. And Brahma is related to Vishnu and Shiva, and Vishnu to Shiva and Brahma, and Shiva to Vishnu and Brahma. So every one of the three aspects absorbs the others, but there are preferred methods of approach, and specifically emphasized methods of approach. And we can't take all paths simultaneously, nor emphasize all things. And so even though we will arrive at a synthesis, everyone will arrive at some sort of synthesis of knowledge, of love, and of will, the emphasis will probably not be the same, and maybe one of these unfolding petals will stand out with greater radiance and power than the others. Even the color within the jewel in the lotus is differential. We're told essentially it's blue-white, but the color of the person's monadic ray is going to be reflected within the jewel in the lotus, and that might not only be one of three, that might be one of seven. So these technicalities of the science of unfoldment lie before us to understand. Right now, we see through a glass darkly and may speculate just a little about some of the higher possibilities. So anyway, Scorpio gives that power of penetration into the true nature of the item of knowledge being studied, and therefore unsuspected relationships may be drawn within the general field of knowledge. As for Sagittarius, its rays are 3, 4, 5 in terms of its 4, 5, 6. Sorry, in terms of the energy passing through it as a constellation, but we have also the the Jupiterian cohesive second ray, the third ray of the Earth, and the militant sixth ray of Mars. Sagittarius, on the higher turn of the spiral, again is associated with the higher mathematics, and it is a sign which conduces towards a high perspective and towards abstraction, and the tendency to move far afield in the exploration of areas which can yield new knowledge. So, Aries is breaking into those fields where knowledge with which one is unfamiliar exists. But Sagittarius travels far to be exposed to areas of new knowledge, and with its great overview, I think it can be connected with the eye, with vision, and maybe even with the panoramic eye. Well, so can Capricorn. But with the great vision development in Sagittarius, it is possible to see the field of knowledge, that which is close and that which is far, as if from a distant perspective, and thus see it as one. So Sagittarius will contribute to the synthesis of knowledge through exploration of fields where many might not explore. They might say, oh, I have enough near at hand. Why should I travel farther? Capricorn is the top of the mountain. We have talked about it. It is the entirely panoramic view. And connected with the third aspect of divinity and with knowledge in concrete form. And it is a sign of synthesis, practical synthesis, and using that which is seen as one, the number 10, one, in a practical manner. And it will help with the structuring and hierarchicalization of the unifying field of knowledge. So it's not just what you know, it's a question of how what you know fits within the pyramidal structure of any sphere or onward to the universe. Hierarchy is pyramidal. And Capricorn, well, no word, but contributes to the pyramidalization of acquired knowledge and its practical use. And it's another sign of integration, just like Cancer is, because it really gets things into form with its powerful seventh ray. Of course, you know, with its the third ray of Saturn is there, and I talked about its connection with humanity and the third ray and that great triangle of Leo, Pisces, Capricorn. So there's many ways in which Capricorn will be useful to the initiate pursuing synthesis. That's really what we're talking about right now. We're talking about how an initiate is after simplification. And simplification and synthesis go hand in hand. That doesn't mean that one cannot understand the articulated units of knowledge, but somehow in the type of vision which is conferred with synthesis, the unity overcomes the multiplicity, and one is not distracted by multiplicity. One sees wholeness, and from the mountaintop of Transfiguration, one certainly sees wholeness in a new way that has only been anticipated on the way to the mountain. When it comes to Aquarius, it's a sign of great diversification. The fifth ray works through it, but so does the third ray. So two very mental rays are connected with Aquarius, and that will automatically relate to the Synthesis Petal of Knowledge, the third and the fifth ray. And there is an expansiveness in Aquarius. The groups are ruled by Aquarius, so it's another whole-making influence, except there's a great fluidity and circulation within the whole that is perceived. And so the dynamic interrelationships of the items of knowledge within the perceived whole are Aquarian in nature. And the ability to apply that knowledge in archetypal ways, ways that represent the pattern in heaven or the patterns of purpose, the archetypes. Aquarius has that kind of ability. And so not only is there perception of the whole and all of its internal fluid dynamics, but there is the perception of the archetype and the way that the various items of knowledge and their aggregates are meant to be applied if they are to be applied according to the plan and according to the purpose. Well, Aquarius will be very useful as we discuss the others as well. The synthesis of love and synthesis of will. When it comes to Pisces, you might say it doesn't have much to do with knowledge, but interestingly, in this age of Pisces, we've had a huge growth of knowledge in humanity. It is a second and sixth ray constellation, but it really deals with the whole field of matter and with all kinds of energies and forces, and with the sensitivity to register them. So it is a synthetic sign. Pisces takes from all the signs, we are told. And so the tendency to bring together all the items found within the field of knowledge is a strongly Piscean. And interestingly enough, you have many very knowledgeable people, especially even in the concrete sciences and the higher sciences, who have very strong Pisces component. It has a strong research component. It breaks down barriers between items of knowledge, between different perceptions, and facilitates their fluid interrelation. So the sensitivity to to items of knowledge that might be hidden is overcome in Pisces, and many more things are registered, impacts in the world of form and even in subtler worlds are registered in Pisces, and therefore the scope of the items of knowledge which can be interrelated in synthesis greatly increases. All right, well, these are, some thoughts along this line having to do with the signs of the zodiac and the first of the petals of synthesis. When it comes to planets, neither the sun nor the moon is a planet, but let's just say the sun is always the symbol of brilliance and illumination, which will come from the synthesis of the factors of knowledge in the possible field of knowledge, which can be apprehended by the individual at that particular stage of evolution. The moon is the mother of the form, and it of itself has no radiation, but will symbolize the worlds of form about which knowledge must be gained. So maybe it doesn't rise out of the 18 subplanes, but a master is essentially the master of the 18 subplanes, or maybe of 21. And so the moon stands for these aggregations of forces which are recognized as forms, and we must register these forms as well as many more subtle things as we are pursuing the synthesis of knowledge. When you think about it, and the whole idea of the synthesis of knowledge, Master DK is tremendous in that regard. We can see how extremely learned he is about the energies and about the creative hierarchies. This is what he said of himself in a somewhat anonymous position. Maybe, some of the other second-ray masters don't have his kind of relationship to knowledge. And I think, when I think of it, it seems to me a very deep third ray can be found in his system, just the way it is in the Buddha's system. When it comes to Vulcan, it is particularly knowledge of the mineral kingdom which is made available, and knowledge of atomic lives and of the power within atomic lives. Vulcan is a first-ray planet, and has a forging, fusing kind of expression. And we are indeed forging together the many items of knowledge into a rational network accessible to pure reason. So Vulcan can really be an integrative force and bring into stability the realized relationships. When it comes to Mercury, probably a third ray monad ultimately, and a fifth ray submonad in my view, and a strong interrelational fourth ray, it is the planet of knowledge per se. And when it comes to creating a unity, a oneness, an interrelatedness within all that has been perceived and is part of our contents of consciousness, which of course is not yet that of the planetary logos, Mercury has a tremendous role to play. It makes sure, that every perception and item of knowledge is linked up until we really can deal with pure reason and move anywhere instantaneously within the field of knowledge. When it comes to Venus, we have a strong fifth ray and, of course, a very cohesive action of the second ray, and it shines the brilliant, focused, laser-like light upon any unit of knowledge and illuminates what it is, and perhaps and thus facilitates establishing the mercurial interrelations between these illuminated items of knowledge. There's something very specific about the Ajna Center as it kind of isolates things in a fifth ray manner, and Venus is shedding its illuminative light upon the items of knowledge within the field of consciousness, so they reveal themselves for what they really are. Pluto will be like that because it will, a little different, but it will dig into every revealed item of knowledge. The Earth has a third ray and a first ray monad. It's sort of the 1, 2, 3 planet, and all of this has to be achieved, an achieved synthesis upon the field of the Earth for the sake, at this time, of the service of the Earth. And Earth is a planet of practicality, so let's just say that at first it does not retract. Its influence does not abstract the viewer from that which is viewed. It engages us with tangible forms. And, it's very related to Sagittarius with its abstraction and its venturing forth to find, and with Gemini interrelating all things, but all for a practical service purpose, practical knowledge. So when we are achieving this synthesis of knowledge on the field of the Earth, it is meant to be applied. With Jupiter, we've talked about it's the force that brings all things together, something like that in esoteric astrology in the early 120s there. The force which brings all things together, the law of cohesion, the unifying force. It is a planet of synthesis. It's not one of the 3 synthesizing planets that gather together all the life seeds of the different planets, but it has a wholeness effect. And you can see what signs it's related to, Sagittarius, Pisces, also to Gemini in its own unique way, and related to Virgo, and for the moment, why am I forgetting it's Aquarius. Okay, there it is. So about 5 different signs in which it always has this cohesive and integrative effect, and it integrates a large number of units widely flung. So even though the field of knowledge would be very extensive, the Jupiter vibration would sort of throw a ring pass knot around it, but an ever-expanding ring pass knot, including more and more. It unites all the items, but at the same time expands through ever-widening horizons the number of items included. So it's a planet of vision and can see the whole. When you think about Cancer, the whole is seen as one. The Jupiter is exalted. There's something about Jupiter which contributes to the ability to see the whole as one in Cancer. So it's a very, it helps the perceived units of knowledge cohere and be functionally organized. It's got a strong seventh ray connected with it as well. Saturn is a major third-ray planet and will definitely connect with Capricorn, which is maybe the most prominent petal in this petal of knowledge for the, it's the petal of synthetic knowledge. Saturn really focuses with objectivity upon the item within the field of knowledge and understands its hierarchical place, its practical function, and utility. It is a structuring planet. I don't know whether it has some seventh ray, but it certainly rules the seventh plane. And it facilitates, as Capricorn does, the structuring and stratification of the field of knowledge which is coming together. It's not enough to bring the items in the field of knowledge simply together in one big container or ring pass knot, although Saturn rules a ring pass knot. These items have to be hierarchicalized and stratified. They have to be prioritized, and the greater has to include the lesser, and on and on. So this is bringing the necessary order to the synthesis. It's not just a collection, it's an ordered collection of all items that possibly can be registered by someone at our degree of unfoldment when we're passing beyond the third degree. Uranus has a lot of third ray, and fifth ray, and first ray, and has a strange connection with a Syrian Piscean second ray stream. So Uranus is an archetypal planet. It's called the Heavenly One. A planet more connected with archetypes, I think, than any other planet, and hence with the divine pattern. Now, this divine pattern has to be somehow imitated when knowledge is aggregated, stratified, hierarchicalized. There has to be the realization of how things essentially are in heaven, regardless of how they seem within the field of knowledge. Uranus, again, the major planet of the first ray, monadically considered, the home of electric fire, thus its unifying force. It is the planet of the lightning, and the lightning need not be a divisive factor. It can suddenly draw all things into cohesion. Master Morya talks about the electric current and the raising of the corks all together into relationship. And then, of course, when the electric current subsides, the corks just fall down individually. He says they get a little tired of applying the current only to see the corks fall down. Obviously, we are the corks. So Uranus has this factor of electrifying oneness and of essentialization, archetypalization, and reveals the right archetypal relationship between the units of knowledge which are coming into unity and finally into synthesis. Uranus is one of the great synthesizing planets, so it's a planet which can reveal simultaneously the manyness and the oneness. And what is gathered into our field of knowledge, each item can come closer to its archetype through the influence of Uranus. And when all items are gathered together in their archetypal nature, we have the real synthesis. Neptune dissolves boundaries. It's largely a 2-4-6 planet with some relationship to the third ray via the trident, and the first ray because Shiva carries that trident. It is a planet which reveals the intuition, and the intuition can help us relate in proper and archetypal form items within the field of knowledge. At first we might not know how they can be interrelated, but Neptune, says Blavatsky in a very strange way, is the god of reasoning. Well, we assume she means pure reasoning, the intuitive revelation of the divine pattern on the Buddhic plane, which reflects a still higher archetypal pattern on the monadic and logoic planes. Neptune also is a planet which can work against ignorance, because ignorance occurs when various fields of knowledge do not interpenetrate or are not appreciated as interpenetrating. We say, well, that's entirely different, there's no relation, and Neptune breaks down the boundaries and promotes this kind of fluid interpenetration, just the way, Pisces does. Neptune is the, I think, major ruler in Pisces from the angle of humanity. So if we have a great collection of items in our field of knowledge, but we don't know in a flash how they should relate, then Neptune can come in and reveal suddenly what that interrelation may be. Uranus is actually the planet of the flash, but somehow Neptune magnetically draws the related items into their proper relation. So it is in a way subsidiary to Uranus, but if we want to unify the field of knowledge, as we will at this synthesis knowledge petal, Neptune is very valuable. You look out upon diverse things and use Neptune, and it makes them into one. It detects the unifying factor behind the diversity. It has a feeling for that. It has the feeling for the pervading unity behind the apparent diversity. With Pluto, the other planets too and all that, but you get the idea kind of how this is done. You are an initiative of the third degree. You are working on synthesis. This is your horoscope. This is your ray chart. What do you do? How do you apply these energies proactively to enhance the synthesis which you are attempting to realize and in which you are attempting consciously to participate? I guess in a way you can't help but participate in the synthesis, but there is a conscious participation which augments the effectiveness of the participation. With Pluto, it's a lot like Scorpio. There's a lot that's hidden in the field of knowledge. It's in the subconscious. We have to be aware of those things too. As a human being, we have to be aware of possible contacts with forces on any level, even if those levels are not necessarily desirable. So Pluto will drag to the surface many items of knowledge long forgotten, which have to be related to one's present degree of understanding. It will also, it has a penetrating quality. It's got a third ray quality, fifth ray and first ray, and some sixth ray as well related to the solar plexus. It is a planet of research, and it just reveals more and more about items of knowledge that we may have thought of in only one particular way, and different layers are revealed through the penetrating power of Pluto. So, let's look more deeply into this. Well, before seeing how this and that are related, let's look more deeply into each one. This is what Pluto can confer. All right, so that should get us started with the main planets. Maybe I should have started with the rays, but the rays are quite synthetic, and we can end with them, and maybe, I don't know, maybe the wise thing to do would be to make a program for each of the three petals. This will be a little longer because it has some of the introductory material. Well, there are certain rays that are rays of synthesis. Ray 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 7. And we could probably find ways in which petal number 5 and 6, too, will contribute to the synthesis. In fact, we already have mentioned something of that. But ray 1, the great ray of synthesis, it's connected with Capricorn, which is the major sign there, and with Aries and Leo. Always ray 1 will be coming through those constellations, and with the penetrative power of Pluto and the fusing, forging, solidifying power of Vulcan and the archetypalizing of Uranus, and just the raw energy of Mars. Because well, synthesis is unity has to be created, but you have to work pretty hard on seeing the unity for the synthesis to be revealed. And so often when we talk about synthesis, practically speaking, we really mean unification. There is a synthesis which already is, but we have to do certain things in our life to work toward the realization of that which is. Well, ray 1 is about the will, and in this case, the will to know, regardless of the obstacles that are presented. And then, because it is a synthesizing ray, to definitely see all knowledge as one, and to use all knowledge in power. And so one has to be very clear about the nature of knowledge, and be able, we're told knowledge is power, and we have to understand under ray 1 how every unit of knowledge in all of its interrelationships can be used with power to bring about the expression of the plan and the purpose. So there's such a strong connection there with Capricorn, and with unitive vision, and with isolated unity toward which we are growing. Let's just say that we're able to isolate the unity and see how all items of knowledge fit within the isolated unity. And of course that brings in some of the pure reason as well, which takes us to pure reason or inclusive reason and ray 2. Definitely it contributes to the fusion of the field of knowledge, to its unification, to its cohesion, to its interrelatedness. It's a very a tactile ray in a way. It doesn't let anything escape its touch. So it's a holding ray in a certain sense, where ray 1 may see the essence of things. Ray 2 will insist that all the forms of knowledge contacted be held cohesively within a unitive field. So it's a great synthetic ray, and when we talk about the synthetic ray of our solar system under the color indigo, it is the great ray 2. And the heart has a synthesizing power here. The power of chakras could also come into this picture, but basically once we're beyond the third initiation and moving to the fifth, we have the heart, the 7 head centers, and the 2 many petaled lotuses, those will be the chakras mainly involved in creating this synthesis. Ray 3 is directly related to this petal and to Capricorn and the third aspect, and it accumulates knowledge. When the causal body is not yet destroyed, but when the causal body is destroyed under the Ray 3 soul, it's destroyed through accumulation. So however far flung the items of knowledge may be, the spider gathers them to the center and brings them into close enough proximity where the truly relational rays and planets can take over and find out all the connections. But the acquisitiveness or the acquisition of knowledge contributes to the sense of its oneness. In other words, you say, oh, I've synthesized knowledge. Well, how much? Well, just a little bit. Well, what lies outside your ring pass knot? Oh, I don't know. I haven't synthesized that, haven't touched that, don't know about it. So Ray 3 extends its many, many arms out into the areas where knowledge can be acquired and brings them all together within a field which can then be organized, coherently interrelated, used with power, and so forth. Ray 4 is another ray of synthesis. It seeks the harmony between the items of knowledge. It reveals unsuspected interrelationships. It draws everything together in terms of similarities, which automatically implies differences as well. In other words, the patterns of cohesion within the field of knowledge will be accomplished through the detection of harmony between certain items and then harmony between other items of knowledge. So there is a kind of relationship here to the cohesive second ray, but there's a lot more activity here, I think, in the fourth ray, as the basic harmonies and differences between the rays are between the items of knowledge are sorted out under the influence of this fourth ray, which will draw all things together into beauty, and beauty will be a reflection of the archetypal pattern which we find, under Uranus and in the world of being and so forth. So let's just say that the archetypal pattern is beautiful and harmonious, and Ray 3 works with harmony and friction to bring about a reflection of that archetypal pattern within the field of knowledge. As I say, it's not just enough, with synthesis, it's not just enough to accumulate knowledge, no. It has to be, all the items have to be related in specific ways, according to commonality, according to harmony, according to hierarchical placement and power. So the collection is just the first phase. And of course, Ray 1, I guess, would be really good at understanding the essence shared by all items of knowledge. With Ray 5, we've somewhat discussed this, but it does throw the laser beam upon any item of knowledge and help to reveal its true nature. Its nature on a certain level, and then maybe deeper and deeper and deeper, probing with the help of such planets as Pluto. So the collection of items of knowledge may not be sufficiently luminous in the consciousness, and it is up to Ray 5 to expose through its intense light the true nature of any item of knowledge, so that what it is in itself shines forth with great clarity, which will help also reveal what it is in relation to other items of knowledge in terms of similarity and difference. Ray 6, the passion, the drive, the aspiration to do this does not cease. Master Morya says, strive fierily. We have to have this rising stream of fire which continues to drive the process. Now, ray 6 can also be related to Neptune, we understand, and that has more to do with the mystical vision, which often is quite holistic and good at determining the pervading factor which unifies the various items of knowledge. Neptune can detect this, and part of ray 6 does this as well. It's not a very synthetic ray, although maybe more in the realm of abstract love and idealism. It will contribute to the synthesis. It's often responsible for great divisions which are occurring in the world, and great conflicts, so to speak, between people who just cannot see any similarity in their point of view, and so insist upon the triumph of one and the defeat of another. Conquest and not cooperation. But some of the higher, more mystical meanings, the uprising fire and aspirational propulsion, these can be contributed to unifying the field of knowledge. When it comes to ray 7, it's a reflection of ray 1. It's really considered a ray of synthesis, especially in the New Age, and I would just call it related to what I called articulated synthesis. Highly organized, apportioned, hierarchicalized, stratified field of knowledge in which there is complete and appropriate archetypal circulation between the different items of knowledge. So, maybe it's one of the last things to be applied. You have gathered, you've seen some relations, you have brought about coherence, but you haven't brought about the perfect relation between the accumulated items of knowledge. You haven't built the final pyramid, or which reflects the archetype for any particular system, such as the Earth system. Now, obviously, even at this stage, we're not going to see with the eye of the planetary logos. Not entirely. We're not going to see what he sees. He has many, many Mahamanvantaras which have taken place that have not taken place for us. So our knowledge will be encapsulated. But still, given what is possible for a third-degree initiate becoming a fourth-degree initiate, that knowledge can be systematized, organized, hierarchicalized, and become reflective at least of the human archetype, and of certain aspects of archetypal patterns found on higher planes. Like, as Plato had his allegory of the cave, and he talked about the great forms of which we see only the reflection. Those forms are not physical forms at all. They are archetypal forms in the world of being and in the world of causes, and some of that comes to us, and among that which does come to us, we can see a certain order which ray 7 facilitates. Well, I find this to be interesting, and maybe, I say in a peculiar way that I know more about knowledge than I know about love or will, at least for the moment, know more about knowledge. But it is quite, it calls for such concentration when trying to think of these things, and knowing, of course, that one cannot think of all the relevant interrelations, and maybe one may miss even one or more of the most relevant interrelations when discussing a particular energy. But at least it will get us started in thinking about how to approach synthesis and the synthesis of knowledge when we are endowed with certain rays, signs, and planets in prominent places in our ray chart or astrological chart. And then we can be proactive in our quest for the synthesis of knowledge. Everybody should take account of his horoscope and ray chart and saying, this is what I have. This is my objective, this is what I can use, this is how I'm going to use it. It might be a little demanding, a little bit of a slog, requiring a lot of concentration, but when it's all over, one will have a better idea how to proceed. I cannot say what the sphere of knowledge will be for any individual. Between the third and fourth degree, a lot is added, but there are limitations, and one still does not have the knowledge of a fourth degree initiate or of a fifth, and on and on and on. So there's so much more to touch in terms of the field of knowledge, so much more. But it's quite vast and expansive, the degree of knowledge, compared to that which we have been achieving when a normal human being working in the daily world, building relationships and even learning to sacrifice and all that. All the sacrifices we have made are clearing the way for the acquisition of greater and greater knowledge. And I would say to any of us, well, we may accumulate a lot of knowledge. It's just a drop in the bucket, of course. But let's not be satisfied with accumulation. Let us work within the field of knowledge accumulated so that the items accumulated are seen as appropriately harmonized or different and unified in some manner, and essentially, eventually, all one field. Let us organize our field of knowledge. Well, think about what the Masters of the Wisdom are called, what the hierarchy is called, the Society of Organized and Illumined Minds. It gives you an idea of what is required. So, and then, of course, that humorous statement that even a donkey can carry a library on his back, which means that we do not succeed in assimilating and organizing our accumulations. So there's a lot more to the synthesis of knowledge than just being aware of a lot of things in a big jumble. Well, tell you what, friends, we've talked here for about an hour and 47 minutes. It's kind of an ungainly number. And of course I could just, kind of go on for another 13 minutes or so, or 12 minutes, and try to round this off at 2 hours. But I feel I have said what I can. If I were writing this all out, which even this little bit would take months, then, I could probably be more specific and catch more things which escape me in the verbal flow. But I've decided to do these programs in this way, and hopefully you will derive some seed thought benefit from some of the things that are said. One thing that does occur to me, some of the higher laws of the soul do apply here in these synthesis petals. The law of group progress certainly continues, but these are, triadal laws. But the law of expansive response suggests it's coming under the third ray, and it really would contribute to this synthesis of knowledge. We are beginning to live the triadal life, and it will apply even after the egoic lotus is destroyed. So it does come into effect here under the third ray. And various of the systemic laws and so forth, all those come in. But, although it's not my nature generally to do so, since I have this horrible habit of trying to say every last little thing about everything, even though I don't really think I have a whole lot of fifth ray, but I think that given the seed thoughts which have been proposed, you are in a position to take this further if you want to do so for some research project, or at some future time when you are a member of one of the new schools in your next or succeeding incarnation. I'm trying a bit to plow the mental field so that certain correlations which might otherwise not be made at this time are at least there, and provide a basis for stimulating interrelative thought. The whole thing for me is about, not the whole thing, but I have a very elevated Mercury in my chart in Aries, and so is right on the midheaven basically, and I just go quite mad in the field of correlation and try to find the links between unsuspected things, items of knowledge, whether horizontally or vertically. It's a bit of a free-for-all, and probably so many things are missing. It's a bit like so shooting a gun in the dark, and hoping to hit something. But something does emerge which can form a basis for those who are interested in correlation studies. And not, some of the scientific correlation studies with, what do they call them? Coefficients of correlation, all those fifth-rate things. I'm talking about the big picture. I'm talking about how so many things are revealed to our consciousness which we simply allow to stay there without bringing them into relation with the other items gathered into our mind and generally into our consciousness. It all has to form a unified field so that with the speed of lightning we can go from any place in the field to any other place. And that, of course, will be under the spell of the intuition. The intuition is what will allow us, the Master Morya calls it the lightning of thought, okay? But for us it's pure reason and the intuition, and it allows us to take the entire content of our ring pass knot, as far as consciousness goes and knowledge, and travel instantaneously from any point to any other point and see the relation between things. Sometimes I actually suggest, well, I think it's a method that has been used, but you write about a bunch of odd items in bowl number 1 and the same in bowl number 2, and then you sort of reach in, stir it around, and take them 2 at a time. And let it may not happen immediately, but let the lightning flash, the lightning which connects the 2 items. Suppose I was fortunate enough to pull up Neptune over here and soup over here. Immediately I would see the connection of how Neptune dissolves forms into a rather soup-like mass. Or suppose I picked up soup over here. I guess maybe I'm hungry. Okay, soup over here, and the third solar system over here, previous solar system. Well, I might see the flash between the sign Cancer, which Neptune rules, and the earlier part of the previous solar system, and the way in which we can expect a rather inchoate type of system which gradually solidifies in more articulate forms as Virgo takes over the second part of the solar system. So anything is possible. Anything is possible when 2 items of knowledge are held up, contrasted with each other, and when the will to see relations between the items of knowledge is present. It's a game, and I think it's a Mercurian game, but it's also, Mercury in terms of knowledge, but Mercury in terms of the intuition too, and it's a Uranian-Neptunian game too, because, the unexpected occurs. And relations of a most extraordinary kind can appear. And at the same time, we are stimulating our buddhi manas. The manas is there, but the buddhi, the pure reason, is going to reveal something to us about the divine archetypal structure. Well, I think, so what I'll do here, can't you see how I'm stalling to make 2 hours? Shameful, isn't it? All right. Anyway, let's just call this the end of Egoic Lotus Webinar Commentary Program 61, Introduction to Specific Energies, in relation to the Petals of Synthesis and Petal of Synthesis number 1. This is a terrible title. Number 1 or Petal 10. So that will be the, that's a terrible title. All right. And then what we'll do next is we'll go for the beginning. Oh, how about that? How about this? Beginning of Egoic Lotus Webinar Commentary Program 62, which will be specific energies and Petal 11, the synthetic petal of love. And maybe wisdom should be included. So I don't know how long this program will last, but I'm shooting for 2 hours, and then I have the great invocation. So if you will indulge me, we will all do that together. And then I should be coming out just about 2 hours. Oh, so happy about that, as I don't like really oddly shaped programs, but sometimes have to simply agree to do them. Okay. Great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, friends, the next program will be on the specific energies related to the synthesis petal of love, wisdom. I want to include somehow wisdom, even though, in the synthesis petals of love, and then in the monad, will, wisdom, and activity. But I want to say will, love, wisdom, and activity. I think it's hard to separate love from wisdom, at least in our system. So, okay, friends, I think I have made it to 2 hours. Oh, goodness. And I think I will put that down. Yeah, I may have cheated a little bit, talked about bringing the units together, but at least it's a program more or less of a useful length. So, we'll see you soon. Take care.